It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, the government's promise to stop using hotels to house asylum seekers. More than 32,000 illegal immigrants are currently housed in hotels, costing more than £1 billion a year.
212 hotels, billions of pounds in taxpayer money, no longer serving the British public. The government says it will end it all. Yet only recently, thousands more people were still being placed into asylum accommodation. In Epping alone, official reports record 138 individuals housed in a single hotel, with 16 individuals convicted of serious violent crimes and safeguarding offences. The courts were forced to intervene, yet the hotel could not be closed. If one hotel cannot be shut, then ending it all is nothing more than a statement on paper. When promises are left on paper, voters turn them into reality. That question was put directly to the government in Parliament by Dr. Neil Hudson.
Our community, Mr. Speaker, is in distress. The situation is untenable. This week, the schools are back. The hotel is in the wrong place, right near a school, and many concerned parents have contacted me. When will the Home Secretary and the government listen to us, address this issue, and do the right and safe thing and close the Bell Hotel immediately?
The Home Secretary did not answer. She turned the page. Outside Parliament, the situation had already moved beyond words. 10:42 a.m, the Bell Hotel, Epping. The crowd surged against the barriers. Police raised shields and ordered people back. No one moved. Bodies collided. Protesters were driven into metal fencing as shields struck chests. Pushing spread along the line. 1:27 p.m, police vans rolled in. Protesters rushed the vehicles, some stepping directly in front. Officers locked into a tight shield formation and advanced in short bursts. One person went down. 2 officers pulled him clear. 2:56 p.m, the confrontation turned direct. Batons came out to force distance. Shields slammed the pavement as police pushed forward. The crowd split, then surged again. 3 individuals were restrained, arms locked behind their backs, handcuffed on the street. Shouting erupted. 5:34 p.m, transport vehicles began leaving the hotel. The crowd reacted instantly, rushing the convoy. Police forced open a corridor. Brief but violent scuffles followed as shields drove people away from the vehicles. 2 further arrests followed before the convoy cleared the area. 8:18 p.m, darkness fell, the crowd stayed. Fireworks arced over police lines and exploded behind the cordon. Officers held formation shields high, no pursuit. 1 individual was dragged from the crowd after throwing an object and taken away. Late evening debris covered the street. Police lines remained in place. The crowd thinned. The shouting faded. What remained was tension hanging in the air. By the end of the day, more than 30 migrant hotels were emptied, suspended, or forced to halt operations across multiple regions. After the promise failed to materialise, action did not originate from the centre of power. There was no national address, no coordinated announcement, and no publicly communicated timeline. Yet movement began, not through policy but through operations. Police lines remained. Barriers stayed in place. But behind the visible perimeter, administrative switches were quietly flipped. Several migrant hotels paused intake. Others entered immediate relocation protocols. Security postures were adjusted. Access points were restricted. These were not symbolic gestures. They were operational decisions triggered by pressure, not leadership. What stood out was not system acted, but when it acted. The capacity to intervene had existed long before. Warnings had been recorded, assessments had been logged, yet decisive steps arrived only after confrontation made inaction more costly than response. No explanation accompanied the shift. No rationale was offered for why similar measures had not been taken earlier, when tensions were already documented. For those watching events unfold hour by hour, the silence carried weight. It suggested a system capable of movement but unwilling to move first. Authority did not collapse, it hesitated, and hesitation, once visible, begins to thin trust. What followed did not remain contained. Once one location was forced into quiet adjustment, pressure migrated. Other hotels of similar profile entered heightened alert. Some were emptied rapidly, others suspended operations temporarily. In total, more than 30 migrant hotels across multiple regions were emptied, paused or forced to halt activity by the end of the day. These decisions did not flow from a single national directive. They emerged from individual councils and police commanders responding to immediate risk. Each decision made sense in isolation. Together, they exposed a deeper fault line. The promise to end all asylum hotels lacked an operational spine. Without a shared framework, pressure was not resolved. It was displaced. As one site adjusted attention, shifted to the next. Movement became pattern became signal. Resources stretched thin as police forces monitored multiple fronts. Events were no longer being shaped by policy. Policy was reacting to events. The system remained active, but control fragmented. This was not execution, it was containment by dispersion. At the centre of government, the issue was not ignorance. Briefings existed, data was available, officials understood the scale and trajectory. What was absent was decisive judgment. Every option carried political exposure. Acting early risked backlash. Delaying action risked escalation. In that calculation, delay was repeatedly chosen, not because risks were unseen, but because responsibility for consequences was deferred. Responsibility diffused across departments, committees and legal considerations. No single authority held ownership of the public promise that had been made. Processes continued to function, but leadership narrowed into procedural compliance. Governance became risk management rather than direction setting. When leadership recedes, institutions default to self-protection. Coordination weakens. The system does not fail loudly, it fragments quietly. Statements continued to appear, but they described a reality that had already shifted. Authority remained present, yet it no longer set the pace. At a certain point, decision-making inverted. Actions began moving upward from the edges rather than outward from the centre. Local councils acted to reduce immediate risk. Police commanders adjusted tactics in real time to prevent escalation. Facilities were cleared without waiting for national endorsement. None of this was unlawful, but it revealed a reversal. Authority still existed, yet leadership no longer led. This divergence created imbalance. Frontline officers managed pressure without a clear end state. Councils made urgent calls without assurance of national backing. Central departments focused on legal exposure and messaging. Each protected its remit. No one held the whole picture. To the public, the complexity was invisible. What they saw was inconsistency. Orders changed by location, responses differed by authority, explanations shifted by department. The state appeared present but not unified. And unity is the foundation of trust. When citizens sense that institutions no longer move as one, they stop waiting for direction, not because the law disappears, but because coordination does. When order returns, what remains is not the damage, it is the precedent. This situation was not the result of spontaneous disorder. It followed a prolonged sequence of warnings that were acknowledged but not converted into early intervention. The lesson is not about crowd control or emergency response, it is about prevention. Effective governance operates before thresholds are crossed, not after. It responds when signals are weak, not when consequences are unavoidable. Delayed action sends an unintended message that concerns gain traction only once harm has occurred. Trust erodes not through isolated mistakes, but through repeated inaction. Public commitments without visible follow-through diminish confidence gradually as the gap between language and outcome widens. Stability is not defined by how well a tense day is managed, but by whether such days are prevented altogether. That requires clarity of responsibility, transparency of intent, and the willingness to act early. Temporary measures can suppress immediate pressure, but they do not repair credibility. The central question is not who reacted forcefully at the end, but why timely action never arrived at the beginning. Reform does not start with statements. It starts with alignment between warning and response, between promise and execution. When leadership moves only after being forced, pressure will return stronger, faster, and harder to contain. That is the cost of delay, and that is the lesson this episode leaves behind.